Just show me.
E12. So what if the ultimate currency you're working for every single day isn't actually money?
Oh, that's a big question to start with.
Right. But just think about it for a second. You go to your job, you get your paycheck, and then you use that money to, buy food, pay for
I'll
shelter.
try to buy a little peace of mind on the weekend.
Exactly. But if you strip all of the economics away, you aren't actually working for paper bills or digital numbers in a bank account.
Right, you're working for energy.
Yes, you are working for the raw capacity to live a healthy, peaceful, and functional life.
Which is a complete paradigm shift, really.
It totally flips the script. And what if I told you that you could theoretically store your entire life's energetic savings, like all of it, in a simple piece of dried fruit?
Or even a completely ordinary piece of string.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission for this deep dive today is to explore a truly fascinating text. It's called Divine Energy, written by Vijayanand Guruji.
He's the founder of the Ananda Rishi Foundation, right?
Yep, that's him. And we're going to look really closely at how this text defines the management of energy.
Which is such a cool concept.
It is. But we're really going to spend the bulk of our time on the second part of our sources today, because we're building up to a really wild question.
The overflow problem.
Right. Once we build up our internal energy, how can we actually store it outside of our physical bodies?
Because the author, well, he doesn't just offer this vague philosophical view of energy. Yeah.
Right. It's not just poetry.
No, not at all. The text presents a highly mechanical, almost like an engineering framework for how energy operates inside us.
Yeah, it treats spiritual practice like a tangible science.
Exactly. And crucially, it talks about how we can manipulate physical objects in the world to actually hold that energy.
But to get to that external storage, we kind of first need to establish the baseline of our own existence.
We have to know what we're working with first.
Right. The text breaks down exactly why the human body needs energy in the first place. And it goes way beyond just, needing calories to walk up a flight of stairs.
Or pump lead.
Yeah. It argues that energy is what literally fuels our specific senses.
Which I found so interesting, the granularity of.
Oh, it's super detailed. It points out that we need light energy just to be able to physically see.
Right.
We need sound energy to process hearing and touch energy to feel the world around us.
And it goes even deeper than that. The author explains that we require chemical energy for our stomachs to just break down food.
Wow, yeah.
And water energy to maintain the flow of our blood.
It's like a massive spectrum.
It really is.
Yeah.
The text lists dozens of energies required for a comfortable human life. Electrical energy, mechanical energy, magnetic.
Electromagnetic energy.
Yes.
Right.
You're essentially this highly complex biological machine, and you're running on dozens of different types of invisible fuel all at the same time.
Which brings up a really interesting visualization for me.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Well, if you're running on all these different fuels, what does it actually mean to be healthy?
Oh, right.
According to this framework, health isn't just, not having a virus or not having a broken arm.
Health is simply a state of absolute equilibrium.
Exactly. It makes me think of looking at a massive audio mixing board in a recording studio.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. You have dozens of sliders. You've got the drums, the bass, the vocals, the treble.
Reverb.
Yeah. And if you're sitting there and even one single slider is pushed too high,
Or dropped completely to zero.
the whole song sounds terrible.
The mix is totally ruined.
Exactly. You can't just ignore the bass slider and expect the song to sound right.
Yeah.
And the text supports that exact logic.
It does. When your biological mixing board is out of whack, when any of these specific energies are either in excess or in a deficit.
Right. Compared to your baseline?
Exactly. That imbalance is the literal mechanical cause of disease. The equilibrium is broken.
And your physical body or your mind reacts to that broken harmony.
Right. And the text actually gives us a really clear diagnostic view of how that manifests.
Like the acute versus chronic stuff.
Yeah. So if you have a short-term energetic imbalance, that shows up as an acute disease.
Just a temporary blip on the mixing board.
Right. But if you ignore that slider, if that imbalance persists over a long period, it hardens into a chronic disease.
Oh, man. And it also categorizes where these imbalances happen, right?
It does. If the energetic deficit or excess is purely mental, the text classifies it as a psychic issue.
Okay.
But if that internal imbalance cascades, like if it spills over and starts affecting both the mind and the physical body, it crosses over and becomes psychosomatic.
So the cure, logically, is simply returning to that equilibrium.
You slide the mixers back to neutral.
You reduce the excess where you have too much, and you actively increase it where you're running a deficit.
Right. Getting back to baseline.
But, okay, here is where we pivot.
Here's the fun part.
Yeah, this naturally leads us to the core of our deep dive today. Because if you are actually following the spiritual practices outlined in the second part of our sources,
Like meditating, chanting,
yeah,
breath work.
if you're doing all that, you aren't just trying to maintain that neutral baseline anymore.
You're actively trying to increase your energy.
Exactly. The text explicitly mentions that as you practice and increase your kundalini,
That dormant energy at the base of the spine.
yes, that one, as you increase it, your aura actually grows.
You're intentionally generating a massive surplus.
Right.
You're pulling in significantly more divine energy than your daily bodily functions require just to survive.
You're overcharging the system.
Exactly.
So, okay, if health is just maintaining equilibrium,
Right.
what happens when you intentionally generate this massive surplus?
Where does it go?
Right. We know from these traditions that this divine energy gets stored internally in the chakras.
Which act like internal batteries.
But the human vessel has to have a limit, doesn't it? If your aura is growing and your internal storage is completely full, can we actually take this excess spiritual energy and store it outside the body?
And the text provides a resounding yes to that question.
Which is wild.
It is. It dedicates significant focus to the physical storage of spiritual energy.
So it's not just letting it dissipate into the air.
No, it's about actively capturing it. The author presents specific, tangible methods for how practitioners have managed this overflow for centuries.
And the primary answer the text gives for storing this divine energy is something that it might actually catch you off guard if you aren't familiar with it.
The Rudraksha,
Yes, the Rudraksha bead.
which is so central to this practice.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening who might not be able to picture it, you've likely seen them around.
Oh, definitely.
They're those deeply textured, almost woody-looking beads, usually brown.
You see them worn as necklaces or bracelets by monks or people practicing yoga.
Right, but let's ground this in the botanical reality for a second.
Please do.
Because the text is very specific about what this object actually is. It's not some rare, mystical stone forged in the center of the earth.
It literally comes from trees.
It does. These trees grow in very specific forests, and the text details their whole life cycle.
Yeah, and when the Rudraksha is fresh on the branch, it's actually green.
Right. It's shaped almost like a small egg or a fleshy fruit.
But as it matures and dries out, it undergoes this huge physical transformation. It shrinks, it hardens, and it eventually becomes that perfectly round, deeply grooved bead we all recognize.
And the author highlights a really fascinating detail about that natural drying process.
It's a stalk.
Yes. As the green Rudraksha fruit dries and shrinks inward, the middle stalk that attaches it to the tree naturally falls off.
Wow.
And when that stalk drops, it leaves a perfect natural hole right through the center of the bead.
So you don't even have to drill it.
Exactly. You don't drill it at all. It is biologically perfectly suited for threading a string right through it.
That's incredible.
The text implies there's this sort of natural readiness in its geometry, like it's an untouched, naturally occurring circuit just waiting to be utilized.
And the geometry goes even deeper than just that hole in the center, too.
Oh, definitely.
The sources classify these beads based on what are called mukis, or faces.
Right, the deep clefts.
Yeah, those natural lines that run vertically down the surface of the dried bead. And they aren't all uniform. The text notes they can range anywhere from 1 to 15 faces.
And sometimes even up to 21 faces.
Which is crazy rare.
Very rare.
Or,
And the classification isn't just aesthetic, it's highly energetic.
how so?
Well, the text points out that the Panchamuki, the five-faced Rudraksha, is the most commonly found in nature.
Okay, so that's the one most people use.
Right. It's the most widely used for general energy management. But the Ikamuki, the single-faced Rudraksha,
The one with just one line.
exactly, that one is considered incredibly rare and highly revered. Because of its unique singular geometry, it's viewed as the most pristine and powerful variation for storing focused energy.
Okay, but if I'm playing the skeptic here, I have to push back a little bit. We just established that this is, at its core, a dried seed from a tree.
It is biological matter.
Right. It's a piece of dried fruit. I understand it has interesting geometry, but how does a piece of dried fruit actually hold on to invisible spiritual energy?
It sounds a bit like magic, right?
It sounds like we are crossing the line from energy management into literal magic. Does the text actually explain how this works?
It does, and the author anticipates that exact hesitation. The text doesn't ask you to just take this on blind faith.
Okay, good.
It approaches the bead less like a magical amulet and more like a highly specialized piece of technology.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, it really does. The text actually references a specific replicable experiment to prove the mechanics of how this organic material holds a charge.
Wait, an actual experiment?
Yes. The author invites the reader to take a Rudrakshamala.
Which is essentially a rosary, right?
Exactly. And it's strung in very specific mathematical counts, usually 108, 54, or 27 beads.
And crucially, and I found this part fascinating, the text notes, they are often strung using metals like gold, silver, or copper wire.
Yes. Keep those metals in mind. So the experiment starts with establishing a baseline. You're instructed to measure the mala's inherent energetic output before you do any practice at all.
So you literally test its baseline, just like you would check the voltage of a battery before using it.
Precisely. Then comes the mechanical input. You hold that specific mala in your hands and you chant a mantra 108 times.
Okay.
The text claims that if you measure the bead's energy again immediately after that chanting session, you will notice the energy has demonstrably increased.
Wow.
The baseline has shifted. The invisible energy of your practice has been captured by the physical object.
Let's look at the how behind that, though, because the components of this experiment are incredibly telling.
They really are.
You're using your voice to chant a mantra. Sound is acoustic energy. It's a physical, mechanical vibration, literally compressing the air.
Yeah.
And you are directing that specific acoustic frequency along with the deep psychic intention of your mind into this dense, woody material.
And remember how they're connected.
Yes, the gold, silver, or copper. Those aren't just pretty metals for jewelry. In modern science, those are literally the top conductive metals we use in electrical wiring.
What's fascinating here is that the text is outlining a complete energetic circuit.
Yeah.
The underlying mechanism being proposed is that the Rudraksha bead itself is not a power plant. It's not generating the energy on its own.
It's just a vessel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It acts as a highly efficient biological conductor. The human mind and the physical vibration of the vocal cords, those are the generator.
It's like the human is the computer and the bead is just an external hard drive.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. You're taking the raw energetic data you've generated through your meditation and you're actively writing it to the biological substrate of the wood.
You're saving the file to the hard drive.
Yes.
And the author goes even further, noting the cumulative effect of this process.
Because you don't just do it once.
Exactly. If you do this through regular daily chanting, you don't just shift the baseline once. You continue to increase its stored power.
You're actively depositing energy into the bead day after day.
Week after week. And the text claims that eventually, wearing this deeply charged mala turns it into a literal protective shield around your neck.
And this brings it right back to the concept of health and equilibrium we started with.
It connects perfectly.
The author claims that this deeply stored energy acting as that shield can provide actual physical relief for chronic diseases.
It specifically mentions heart conditions, high blood pressure, and diabetes.
Wow. So ailments that can actually be mitigated by wearing this external battery of balanced energy.
Right. And to further prove that physical objects are merely interchangeable carriers for human-generated energy, the text broadens its scope significantly.
Oh, this is the part about the mythology.
Yes. It moves away from the Rudraksha entirely and brings up this brilliant analogy regarding ancient epic battles.
And the mythical weapons used in them, known as astras. I love this section because it asks us to really look at the mechanics of mythology.
It makes it so tangible.
When we read these ancient epics, we hear about these devastating, world-altering weapons, right?
With fire raining from the sky, oceans boiling.
Exactly. But the text points out what it calls the illusion of the arrow. On these ancient battlefields, when two opposing armies faced off, the physical arrows they were firing at each other looked exactly the same.
They were all just carved wood and forged iron.
Right. The raw, devastating power of an astra didn't come from the physical craftsmanship of the wood or the sharpness of the iron.
The text emphasizes that the power came entirely from the mantra.
The mantra the warrior chanted right before letting the arrow fly.
The physical weapon was nothing more than a temporary delivery system.
A hollow vehicle for the energetic payload of the mantra. It's pure energetic warfare.
It really is.
If you get hit by an astra, you aren't being destroyed by the wood. You're being overwhelmed by a concentrated, weaponized frequency.
And the text breaks down specific astras to show how incredibly logical and systematic this energetic warfare actually was.
Oh, the dominance and neutralization stuff.
Yes, it mentions legendary weapons like the Brahmastra, the Sudarshana Chakra, the Trishul.
The Pashuptatastra.
Right. But what's truly fascinating is how the author describes these energies operating on a strict system of dominance and neutralization.
It wasn't just random chaotic destruction.
No, it was physics.
It sounds exactly like the mechanism behind modern noise-canceling headphones.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, active noise cancellation doesn't block sound with a thick physical wall, right? It listens to the incoming frequency of the background noise, and then it generates the exact opposite sound wave.
Oh, wow.
And when the two opposing waves collide midair, they neutralize each other perfectly, and it leaves silence.
That is an exceptional way to conceptualize what the text is describing.
Yeah.
Because the author explains that if a warrior fired an Agniastra,
Which is a fire weapon.
right, carrying the dense, destructive, energetic frequency of fire, well, the opposing warrior wouldn't just shoot a regular arrow back.
They get burned up.
Exactly. They would neutralize the incoming wave by chanting the specific mantra for a Varunastra.
A water weapon.
Yes.
So the water frequency perfectly neutralizes the fire frequency midair.
Exactly. And the text lists other pairings, too. Like, if someone fired an Agastra, which carried the energy of a venomous snake, the precise countermeasure was to fire the Garuda Astra.
Because a Garuda is an eagle, and eagles eat snakes.
Exactly. It carried the neutralizing energy of an eagle. The physical arrows themselves were completely irrelevant. They were just the vehicles carrying these clashing, neutralizing frequencies.
The text goes out of its way to prove that you didn't even need a weapon to do this.
Right, because if the physical object is just a vehicle, the vehicle can be incredibly mundane.
Super mundane. The author describes how ancient sages didn't carry bows and arrows around. They would simply take ordinary water from their kamandalu.
Their small, handheld water pot.
Yeah. And water is arguably the most receptive delivery system on Earth.
It takes on whatever you put into it.
Exactly. The text describes how a sage would hold a handful of ordinary water, charge it with intense, focused mantra energy, and then physically throw that water at a person to deliver either a profound blessing or a devastating curse.
The water itself had no inherent magical property.
Not at all.
It was just a programmable, highly conductive medium for the sage's cultivated energy.
Which leads to my absolute favorite specific anecdote from the entire text.
Oh, the Dronacharya story.
Yes. It completely demystifies the idea that you need a special sacred object to hold power.
It really does. Dronacharya's secret perfectly encapsulates the ultimate conclusion of this energy storage concept.
He was a legendary warrior.
Which is completely invincible in the ancient epics. But the text reveals that he didn't use a specialized iron weapon, or a rare crystal, or even a highly prized Ikamuki Rudraksha bead to store his immense power.
What did he use?
He stored his entire aura of invincibility in a simple, completely ordinary thread that he tied to his head.
A literal piece of string.
A piece of string.
Yeah.
He charged that mundane thread so deeply and completely with his generated energy that as long as he wore it, the energetic shield was impenetrable.
That is insane.
He simply could not be defeated in battle. The physical material was entirely irrelevant. The energetic charge was everything.
Wow.
And the text actually makes a point of noting that right before his death, Dronacharya physically removed this highly charged thread and passed it on to Sri Krishna.
Oh, successfully transferring that massive stored energy to another person.
Exactly.
So, if you're listening to this right now, you might be wondering, what is the ultimate point of all of this?
Why does it matter today?
Exactly. Why are we sitting here learning about the botanical properties of dried seeds or the wave interference physics of ancient mythical weapons?
It is the most vital question to ask when confronting a text this detailed.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture the author is painting, the point is not just to give us a theoretical history lesson.
And it certainly isn't to encourage you to sit in a room and build up a massive stockpile of spiritual energy just for the ego boost of having a huge aura.
Right, you aren't supposed to be an energetic hoarder.
Yeah.
The text reaches a very clear, actionable conclusion about the true purpose of this energy management.
Which is twofold, right?
Yes. The goal of storing and increasing your divine energy, whether you do that through chanting, deep meditation, or deliberately charging a Rudraksha, the first purpose is self-healing.
Okay.
You must use that stored surplus energy to repair your own physical and psychic imbalances first.
You have to bring your own internal mixing board back to that perfect baseline of equilibrium.
You have to make yourself whole.
Because, as they say, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. But once your cup is full, it overflows,
And that overflow leads to the second purpose.
healing others.
Right.
Once you have achieved self-healing and have managed to store a surplus of divine energy in your external physical vessels, you are explicitly meant to transfer that stored energy to those around you who are in need.
You use your carefully charged battery to jumpstart someone else's depleted system.
Which perfectly sets up a truly defining quote from the very first part of our source material.
Oh, what is it?
The author writes, "A good person learns knowledge. A great person practices it."
Oh, that's powerful.
The author is issuing a direct challenge to the reader. The text is reminding you that this manuscript isn't just a theoretical textbook meant to be read, intellectually understood, and then put back on a dusty shelf.
Right.
Understanding the geometry of a rudraksha or realizing that ordinary water can carry a profound blessing is just learning knowledge.
The greatness, the actual spiritual evolution, only comes from the practice.
Comes from actually sitting down, generating the deep intention, audibly chanting the mantra,
Actively charging the physical vessel.
and then taking that stored energy out into the world to heal yourself and your community.
That is amazing. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the management of energy, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over.
Okay.
We spend this entire time talking about ancient sages in forests and legendary warriors on epic battlefields. But think about your own modern life right here, right now. If a completely ordinary wooden arrow, a simple splash of water from a handheld pot, or a completely plain piece of string tied around a head can be systematically charged to hold immense world-altering energy, what about the everyday objects around you right now?
Oh, wow.
Look at the pen on your desk, look at the watch on your wrist, look at the coffee mug you're holding right now. What if they aren't just cold, inanimate objects? What if they are actually empty, highly conductive vessels, just waiting to be deliberately charged with your specific energetic intention today?
Jeguda.